The Mexican state of Zacatecas is one of the most dangerous places in the world right now, mainly due to the blood war between the Jalisco New Generation Cartel and the Sinaloa Cartel. In recent years, they've locked horns for the control of drug trafficking routes, territory, and the lucrative drug market.
The Jalisco New Generation Cartel took the fight to the next level, shooting down a military helicopter with a rocket-propelled grenade.
As you can expect, both cartels are not above using violence to get the bigger piece of the pie. And nothing is off the table. Even high-ranking state representatives, police officers, judges, and journalists have been targeted and murdered.
Mexico City's chief of police was shot and injured early Friday in a dramatic assassination attempt that took the lives of 2 of his bodyguards.
Here's the story of the brutal war between the world's most dangerous cartels. While crime rates have always fluctuated in Mexico, the numbers have never been as alarmingly high as they are right now. Many analysts predict that the violent incidents will only increase in the next few years. The reason for this surge in brutality and homicide? The frightening war between the Sinaloa and the Jalisco New Generation cartels. Both have widely different origin stories, but both use similar tactics of intimidation, violence, and propaganda. Not only are they involved in all sorts of crime, they also love portraying themselves as modern-day saviors of the community.
Que dinero sucio, pero sí nos beneficia a nosotros, nos ayuda. Es que nos den comida, no nos están ensuciando, nos están ayudando.
The Sinaloa Cartel has been around for a long time. Formed in the 1980s, it's one of the oldest and most established drug trafficking organizations in all of Mexico. It was founded by Joaquin Guzman. You may know him as his infamous alias, El Chapo. Before his arrest in 2016, he was considered to be the single most powerful drug lord in the entire world. But him being locked up didn't really change much, as the Sinaloa Cartel continues to operate and is still dangerously influential. His successors have ensured that the organization keeps expanding throughout the world, and they've even recently formed alliances with mafia groups such as the former FARC guerrillas. So yes, even without El Chapo, they're still more dangerous than ever. On the other hand, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel is a relatively new organization that was formed in 2010. It's led by Namacio Aseguir Cavantes, also known as El Mencho, who has quickly risen to the top of the drug trade and is now one of the most wanted criminals in both Mexico and the United States. Under his ruthless leadership, this cartel has gained the reputation of being extremely violent. Since his rise, the homicide rate, disappearances, and the discovery of dead bodies has significantly increased in Zacatecas. The CJNG has been involved in murderous attacks on police officers, massacres, beheadings in different states. They've even hung corpses on bridges.
Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación, CJNG, is the single criminal organization most responsible for these deaths on both sides of the border.
Members will often upload videos on the internet where they flex their military muscle in order to terrify their competition, the cops, and the civilians. What's more, they'll even bring food, clothing, and other supplies to vulnerable communities for the purpose of creating propaganda videos and gaining support from the locals.
Ya estamos en la lucha por liberar los pueblos de nosotros. Somos gente de aquí de las áreas y nos interesa pues, seguir haciendo lo que estamos haciendo y terminar con lo que estamos haciendo.
These two super powerful cartels want the drug trade entirely to themselves, and thus, it is impossible for them to coexist peacefully.
Y sabemos que en esto andamos y si morimos en esto, pues sabemos que lo hacemos por algo que vale la pena. La guerra, usted sabe que son puras batallas, la guerra nunca se acaba.
In the early 2010s, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel started challenging the Sinaloa Cartel for the control of drug trafficking routes and territory. The conflict and tension grew until an all-out war started in the following years. And the site of this brutal war? Zacatecas. Located in north-central Mexico, this state has become a war zone, mainly because of its highly strategic location. It's the closest place to the so-called Golden Triangle of drug trafficking, where the Durango Mountains, Sinaloa, Chihuahua converge. It is also the center of some of the most important trafficking routes. For the past 3 decades, the Sinaloa Cartel dominated the area and had total control over everything that went on here. They grew so powerful that no one challenged them, and many expected their reign to continue forever. But the newly emerging and ambitious Jalisco Cartel didn't respect their authority and started to conduct their business anyway. This resulted in a war so terrifying that the Mexican government had to send almost 5,000 military and National Guard troops to priority municipalities. This didn't help though, mainly because the cartel's extensive network of influence and bribery. They will use anything from death threats to corruption to protect their interests and keep expanding in the country and elsewhere. Some members of the government are on their payroll, and those who aren't are simply killed off, and the chain of violence rages on. Reportedly, the numbers of police officials murdered in this state has increased by 300% in the last 3 years.
Claro que ha crecido la delincuencia y sobre todo lo más lamentable, los homicidios, porque ya está quedando de manifiesto otro error de permitir el contubernio, la asociación delictuosa entre autoridades y delincuencia. ¿O no está quedando eso de manifiesto?
On June 25, 2021, in the town of Valparaiso in Zacatecas, was the site of a brutal confrontation between the members of the two cartels. This resulted in a tragic, bloody scene of 18 dead bodies lying motionless on the streets of the city. According to testimonies of residents of the community, the participants were continuously exchanging bullets for more than 5 hours. The locals were so scared that they hid beneath the tables and covered their ears from their children. This is just one example of the terror that these two organizations have brought upon the state.
The bullet came in through the door. This is where my wife cooks. Thanks to God, she wasn't cooking then. Here's the bullet hole, and there's the gas cylinder. The bullet hole is here, and that's where my daughter sleeps.
That same year, multiple other shootings were recorded with a large number of victims. The Sinaloa Cartel gunmen once ambushed members of the CJNG in a battle that left 40 people dead, and things have only gotten worse. Since November 2021, numerous people have been murdered every single week, with many of them hanging on bridges throughout the state. Civilians have even been horribly affected, and they live in a constant state of fear and dread. Many of them have even started immigrating to the United States.
I went running with my sister and my father-in-law. We fled without a change of clothes to Juarez to seek asylum in the US because of the violence. My sister was shot in the hand.
2022 was a horrible year for the state of Zacatecas. On January 6, 2022, a car with 10 tortured bodies was found in front of the state governor's office. More raids were registered in Valparaiso, Loreto, Pinos, Calera, and Guadalupe. 3 police officers were also murdered during this month alone. On January 22nd, the authorities located a man hanging from a tree in Monte Escobedo. Near his body, there was a threatening poster with a narco message. The horror doesn't end here. Around the same time, 3 human heads, dismembered bodies, and black bags, and a narco message was abandoned by the Jalisco Cartel near the municipal capital of Jerez, Zacatecas. Reportedly, these messages contained a warning by El Mencho, claimed that he would cleanse the municipalities of anyone who dared to go against his interests. Because of this terrible situation, the national and state security reports have turned the state of Zacatecas a narco state. And now, in the year 2023, the turmoil continues. In January, the Mexican government revealed that at least 29 people, including 10 soldiers, were killed in an operation to arrest the son of jailed El Chapo, named Ovidio Guzman. Thankfully, Guzman, aka El Raton, was rounded up in the northern state of Sinaloa and flown to Mexico City on a military plane. 21 more members of the cartel were also arrested during this operation, and there were no reports of any civilian deaths. While this may seem like good news, analysts believe that this won't really have much of a difference in the long run because the cartels go deep. They always have replacements of replacements of replacements. Both the cartels have extended their business into the United States as well. According to John C. Delalina, DEA's associate administrator for business operations, the drug organizations have associates, facilitators, and brokers in all 50 states, as well as in 40 different countries around the world. He also claimed that these two powerful organizations are the greatest drug threat in U.S. history. They're shipping fentanyl into the states, which is creating a very real threat of overdoses and subsequent deaths. The situation in Mexico has gotten so bad that officials have officially warned citizens to stop traveling to the country and constantly staying vigilant if they do. So what can be done to stop this terrible situation? This atmosphere of violence, murder, torture, and shootings in Zacatecas showed that the federal and state governments have failed to respond sufficiently to the situation. Citizens are suffering due to this war, and if things are allowed to go on as this, the homicide rates will only increase. The Mexican authorities need to reevaluate their security policies to confront the criminals, the key players, and reduce the rates of violence. Plus, military responses alone are not enough in situations as this. It is also important to examine the structural causes that led to the unending phenomenon of drug trafficking. Poverty, lack of education, lack of opportunities, and unemployment can all contribute to the problem.
Pienso yo que en la medida que las personas, las comunidades sobre todo, indígenas y no indígenas, que en determinado momento determinen organizarse y resistir, todo es posible, pero cuando un pueblo está fuerte, está consciente de lo que lucha, porque lucha, sus motivos, sus causas, es complicado que el gobierno o el crimen pueda hacer algo en contra de ellos.
The innocent civilians are the real victims of this situation, and they deserve to see a peaceful end to this frightening saga. As of now, though, Zacatecas is bleeding.